Welcome back, everybody, to Fly the Coop. Today we are with Michelle Hodge. Michelle and I have known each other for going on 6 years now. Michelle relocated from Chicago and it takes on a huge responsibility with the medical field in the Twin Cities. So welcome, Michelle. I'm so excited to have you here today. We're so lucky to have the opportunity to hear your story. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start from the beginning. When I met you, you were coming in from a role in Chicago and you're a single mom. Michelle's a single mom with a beautiful son. What was the motivation to come here to the Twin Cities?
So the health system I was with in Chicago had a reduction in force. I lost my job at the time. So started looking. I applied within Chicago, Cincinnati, because I have friends there, Florida, I have friends there. But I have family in Minnesota, and
Right.
I'm from Minnesota. So applied also in Minnesota.
So the app, were you focused on one company at the time when you were doing?
So I'm in healthcare quality and patient safety, and so that was my focus. Just looking for a leadership role in quality.
It's fascinating what is involved in running a medical institution. What does that mean exactly? When they put somebody into the role of quality, what are they looking at? For the work or the employees or?
Yeah, I mean, we are looking at sort of all aspects of quality of care. So is the care efficient? Is it timely? Is it safe? Is it, high level? Do we have good outcomes? Reducing mortality, reducing infections. So it's pretty broad.
That's amazing. And so this role is pretty comprehensive. You run how many hospitals?
So I'm with Health Fairview. We have 10 acute care hospitals. We have post-acute care services. We have clinics. We have within the model. We have service lines.
Wow.
So
how many people is that you're running?
So Fairview employs 43,000, I think, employees. So it's a large health system.
Wow. So the quality component of it is really managing the internal components of it is a company, internal components of the people working for the organization.
Yeah, and the patient care. So really looking at, the quality of care. So we work with various service lines. We work with the various hospitals. There's a lot of government regulations and things that we need to kind of keep on top of.
And don't you think, let's talk about that a little bit. To me, from an outside observer, just dealing with medicine, my daughter is now 19 and she had quite a medical run of it the first 5 years. And I was very involved with different medical institutions in the Twin Cities. And even in that time, I feel like the complexity of what's going on out there in medicine and the specialization, if you will, everybody's so specialized now.
Yes.
The complexity amongst trying to get to the end result of a solution. What do you think that's about? Like, what's happening that it's becoming so complicated?
Well, the technology is so advanced now, and also that just medicine is so advanced, and there's so much to know. So it is so subspecialties of specialties.
And it didn't used to be that way.
No, you had your kind of family doctor, but it's really evolved. I mean, we are partnered with the University of Minnesota, which is, there's so much innovation going on there, and there's a lot to keep track of. One of the things we say is we want to own the complexity because for consumers, they're used to, with immediate
instant
they don't
gratification
wanna wait,
solutions.
They want answers. Wait times and trying to get in. It can be really challenging.
And then, of course, going through what we've just been through, don't you feel like the 2 years of COVID completely transformed what is now for everything we do, especially in medicine, has changed the workflow, if you will, and the ability to even get the care that people were used to getting. The way that's being administered from an outside observation is absolutely shifted. Yeah. So stressful job, Michelle.
Yeah, it's transformed, I think, the way we operate and the way we know that we need to pivot and be flexible and nimble. It's the telemedicine piece has really just kind of exploded.
So explain that a little bit. What does that mean exactly in your mind? You're running a huge ship right now. How do you see that telecomponent changing your job in medicine as we see it right now today?
Well, we're all about with quality. It's around processes. So we're looking at making processes efficient, safe, like easy for a provider to do their job and to do it right and to do it the same way every time. So a lot of what we do is reduce variation and standardize care so that if you show up in an emergency room at hospital A, you're going to have a great experience, and it's going to be the same if you show up at hospital B. So it's around,
Interesting.
and it creates efficiencies too. So, the bottom line is also a challenge in healthcare right now. It's expensive.
Wow. So how do you find any balance and control over your schedule when you're operating at that capacity? You've got your son who's very active, and you've got your mom who's aging. We're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about being a single mom in a professional role today. And then more importantly, how we grow through these roles that we've got. In many ways, we're parallel in our growth model in the time we've known each other, just these huge changes that are happening in our industries uniquely. And I'm very aware of it every day, how specialized everybody's skill set is now, where there seemed to be, at least even going back 10 years ago, there'd be a more umbrella approach where you could get to the end game very efficiently and everybody kind of had a know on what was happening through the steps. It seems like there's these little leaps, like everyone's on their own little island and you have several people involved to get from A to Z. When we were just talking, Michelle, when you're dealing with where you started even 5 years ago when you relocated here with this job, we were just saying like what your role used to be is much broader. And now you're just in quality with this very broad group of people managing just that. So quality control has absolutely been the primary focus, and it's such a critical part of a smooth operation. I think that is applicable to any company and any business. Don't you agree?
Yes. I think most businesses have a quality kind of control. You say we also have the quality improvement. So we're not only trying to control our quality, but also continuous improvement because as things continue to change and they change rapidly in healthcare, we constantly need to adjust our processes.
Yeah. So where do you see things going post-COVID and all that you guys have gone through? We've visited about what's happened in the hospitals and what's going on with the clinics. How do you see the future of managing patient care in what we know is an aging market right now, at least here in this city? How's that going to play out?
So one of the things we sort of the challenges we have now are that, there was like a lag, I think, with COVID and patients coming in. And now it's like the floodgates have opened. Our emergency rooms are packed.
That's what I'm hearing.
People are getting procedures done and so on and so forth. So, wait times is an issue. Patient flow is an issue. There's shortages in staffing sort of across the board.
Right.
So even trying to get patients, once they're ready for discharge, into whatever their next setting is.
That's a great pitch for our young people because we have a young market demographic in the city and state as well, just as heavy as our aging demographic. I would say medicine would be something to really consider, huh? What do you think that's about, the shortage of employment there?
Well, I think with COVID, people kind of took a look at, they want more balance. And I also think generationally, people just want more of a balance. So we saw a lot of people retiring earlier. So a lot of our, the people with the knowledge have left. And now we have, new people coming in. We have more needs for training and onboarding and getting people acclimated. So I think it's also the education of the new workforce,
right?
And things, as I said, have changed so rapidly. So all the new technologies. I mean, we have AI, about being able to diagnose.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it?
It's
It's a
fascinating.
whole other conversation.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I mean, it's great because, we only have so many people, and people can only do so much. And so if you can leverage, technology and innovation, it just adds. I mean, it adds, and it can pick up things that the human eye cannot.
That is an interesting segue for sure. Do you see, because of the learning curve right now with the market demographic, we are missing a link right now in that learning process, that transfer of information, if you will, the teaching of the processes, whatever that might be, in this case, medicine, how AI may be a part of that transition. That's interesting. I haven't really delved into that before with anyone.
Yeah, I don't have great answers for that, but I know that, we've talked about how can we use technology, to our advantage, given the challenges we have now.
Right.
So
staffing is a problem for everybody right now. And it became a much bigger problem after COVID. It's like the workforce just disappeared. I'm not sure where all the people are. But so when you relocated, you'd made the decision to move here for family, which most, that's a big driving force for people when they're in life transition, right? Yep. When they fly the Coop, oftentimes you're flying for family. You fly for family. And as a single mom, so let's see, it's been 6 years. How old is your son now?
He's 12. He'll be 13 in May.
He's just a baby when you guys moved,
yes,
and he's in a great school system. So I actually moved Michelle twice. She flew the Coop twice already since she's been here. And the first home we found you was charming, but you were coming in from outstate, which isn't unusual, by the way, just needing a home. And we found a great home. But, like many people, you get here and you kind of like get real clear about what will satiate your lifestyle needs and how you want to live. And we found a really cool home, super cool story that I had a modern listing in a great area of the city that's just fabulously located, like it's a great location. And you've been there since. And you're loving that space, absolutely loving it.
Love it.
When you think about Minnesota as a state, for those that are in relocation mode, because a good part of the work I do, I'm relocating families in and sometimes out, but a lot in. What do you think the draw is for the Twin Cities? Being here, you were from here at one time. You lived here. You grew up here, if I recall.
In Worthington and Worthington, Minnesota in the south.
What's your favorite thing about Minnesota?
So, growing up here, I think the one thing, and I've lived in, various places, Nebraska and Ohio and Illinois, out east, out west, Oregon, Maryland.
Oh, she's a great one to talk to then.
Various places. People love Minnesota. People are proud of Minnesota. Like,
it's true.
I never had that in Ohio. No one ever said, I'm proud to live in Ohio. People love Minnesota. And, I think it's cold, and I'm not a fan of the cold.
Right. We need breaks.
However, it's pretty here. I mean, people enjoy the seasons. They do enjoy the outdoors. And I think the schools are good.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think it's a good quality of life, and it's good for raising families.
Amazing for raising families.
And safe. I coming from Chicago, love Chicago, but there's an aspect of violence there that
right.
It's everywhere, but
it's everywhere. I think any metropolitan area. I mean, you've got to be honest with population, right? So there's always a risk factor in every major, really anywhere now. That's another shift that I'm really hoping we're going to grow through in terms of safety in our communities. But we are very lucky here. Yeah. We have a beautiful city. It's really well operated for the most part. We all have areas of work to do. This conversation we're having on quality applies to every aspect, including operating a large metropolitan area in terms of finding that balance. So once you got here, you have a good amount of family here. And I had the opportunity to meet Michelle's mom, which we have transitioned her as well. As a single mom with a professional role, managing aging parents, how do you find that rhythm? Like, how do you do that? Because there's a lot of women in your position right now that are dealing with that right now, and it can be really stressful.
Yeah, and as a single mom, one of the drivers was family, and my father has passed, but my mother was just a huge source of support, and so moving up here, really anticipating that. And unfortunately, shortly after I got here, she started having memory issues and needed help. And so instead of me getting some extra support, all of a sudden it was turned, and it was like, okay, now I need to help my mother. And I don't know, you figure it out. I mean, that's what happens. You just sort of make it work. And I do have other family here that helps, and my brother's here. So,
which is a huge support mechanism. I mean, the family piece is always going to be, in my mind, anywhere in the world, anywhere that you live, when you are in a position where you've got a right size and have an income, so you're moving to find that right role in life, and you're managing a family. Having the family component around you is gigantic. Having that support system is huge.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate to find a place very close to my home, so it is convenient to pop over or go grab her.
So we ended up selling Michelle's mom's place, and then she's really independent living, though. There's a lot of new. By the way, a side note, for those of you out there that are dealing with aging parents, because that's 40% of our market demographic in the state, there's some amazing new opportunities being built right now in the Twin Cities that are phased in care. So you have your independence, but in the case, like in this case, memory care, once you get them moved, once you get your parents transitioned, you can stay in that facility. It's like living in an apartment almost, right?
Yes, she has her own apartment, but there is it's aging in place, so that we can add services as she needs them.
Right.
But I think the big thing is they have meals there for her. They do a well check every day, so that at least it's peace of mind. I know that, she's okay. So
I would say of the workflow right now with the team, about 25% of the work we're doing are families that have parents that need to be transitioned into an aging in place kind of setup. And it is shocking how many new opportunities are opening all over the metro, not only in the city, but in the tiers outside of the Twin Cities. There's a lot of opportunity out there for that. So long term, you'll be managing that piece of it. And then you've got your gigantic role in the city with this medical position. And you've got your quickly growing up son. Yes. When do you find time to date, Michelle?
Well,
how does that work?
That has been put on the back burner. So yeah, I mean, I have dated, but it's not something I'm actively chasing after right now, because it does take time and energy, and there's only so many hours in the day, but it's important. Before we started today, I was visiting with Michelle. I mean, there's a lot of women out there that are single moms. And when you hit that midlife piece, managing how do you meet people, right? Yes.
If you're working full time and you've got children and you've got a family, where do you compartmentalize for yourself and start meeting people? Because the relationship piece is important, right?
Yes.
It's definitely really, really important. So how do you can't just wait forever. Eventually you're going to delve in. What would be your advice to everybody out there if you are thinking about starting to date again? In your mind, based on where you're at right now, how would you do that?
Well, I'm going to back it up a little bit, because I think it's also, as a busy adult relocating, it's also around friendships as well, because I've lived in 13 years in Cincinnati and then Chicago.
Yeah.
I have great friends in other cities, and then as an adult, where do you start? So it's almost like you're building a network over. And so, at this point, I would say a lot of the, friendships and relationships I've built have been through work, and then have kind of transitioned into those friendships. But I don't, I have good girlfriends who I think I learn from and kind of vicariously have watched try to step into the dating space and the online, and the stories I've heard, it's not very like, oh yeah, let me just jump into that. It doesn't seem it seems a little intimidating, honestly.
My feeling is you put it out to the universe, it comes back to you tenfold. So when you're ready to receive that new relationship, somehow it miraculously appears. Like you just kind of put yourself into those environments. As women are always asking me, because I'm not married. Steve and I haven't gotten married, but we've been together now. This is our 6th year. When you get to this place in life, it's about the children and about the life. It's not the priority around marriage. Marriage often is, when you're young in life, you're growing a life together, right? As young people, and you're starting a family and raising children. There's a place for that. And there's a lot of people I know that get married second and third time. How do you do it? You focus on the things that really fill your soul and that you love and that you're passionate about. And in those experiences, you end up meeting really cool people. And through those cool people, they put people together. So but you have to be ready for it. Like you got to kind of put yourself out there and be ready to receive it. And I think that's the key.
Yeah. You have to get out there. I know when you and I met, and I think we were talking about this, and you had said, I just met someone, and you had been like a month or so, and now look, look how things have evolved.
I know.
So it is cool, and
but
it
I
can
did
happen.
wait. Yeah, it can totally happen. And I was divorced in 2015, and in all transparency, I waited 3 years before I wanted to consider dating. I wanted to push the pause button and focus on Emily. And I think that relationships have to be something that you're all in on, and you want to. We talk about it because this story here, everyone, Michelle represents a lot of women out there, and it can be overwhelming. The dating scene can be overwhelming. Being a single mom can be overwhelming. Running a career and the complexities around the demands in that arena can be overwhelming. And our families can be overwhelming. You got to find some humor in all of it.
Yes.
And find some self-balance and joy, whatever that means.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's been sort of accepting like where I am and what I have, and making the most of it. So, things don't always turn out the way you imagine them, but sometimes it's better.
Sometimes it just happens before, like it happens without you really even realizing it. And then all of a sudden you're in this awesome thing, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, now I'm ready for it.
Yes.
So and some people can feel really defeated or upset about that. And there's so many beautiful things out there, right, to enjoy. You focus on all the happiness, because there's certainly plenty out there when it comes to news, and I call the glitter of the world. And we have to be present and aware of that, but it doesn't have to consume us. Yeah. It's the consumption of negative that we want to avoid. So I think you're super cool, Michelle. Like I've always been so impressed by Michelle, and I really wanted you on the podcast because I think you're impressive as a professional career woman. You've got an amazing family, all of them, and such a great support system. You're an inspiration for anybody that's on the cusp right now of figuring out what they want to do because they're not settled in the place that they're at. And I think that if you've if got any interest, by the way, guys, in learning more about the medical industry, you should give Michelle a call. Just DM us, because there's a need right now out there.
Promo.
That's so funny, a little promo. So tell me what you do to find the work-life balance. What does that look like?
Well, I do love to travel, and I don't do as much as I used to do when I was single. But I do try to, especially because I'm not a cold weather person,
Yeah.
I do try to.
You do go to the warm climates as much as possible.
I do try to get down to the beach somewhere on a regular basis. I ski, downhill ski. And
How do you find time for all of that? That's crazy.
You know, I do think that this time thing, we make time for things. You know, everyone's so busy. I don't have time, but people do. You make time for things that, you know, that you,
I totally agree
that you
with
want
you.
to do, and that. So I think it's also, you know, I think keeping active. I do now work from home since the COVID transition, and so it's getting out of the house. And you know, doing something active.
What do you think of that? Because so much of the industry now is working from home, and what happened has given them the luxury, liberty, or not. Some people don't think of it that way, but don't have a choice in the matter. How do you feel about working from home?
Well, I love it.
Yeah.
And I think I have the best of both worlds because you know, I do have, my scope is the hospitals, so I can go into the hospitals, you know, anytime. And there are various things that I do need to go in for. But as far as like a home base, you know, I had offices at both of the campuses, and you know, gave those up when COVID started because it wasn't a need. So you know, I've really set up at home now, and it's more efficient. You know, it is nice to see people, but
efficiency,
it's very efficient. You know, to
not commute.
Yes, the commuting. I mean, I used to, back in the day, I mean, we'd go from hospital to this office building. I mean, you're just driving around so much. And so, especially with the winters we have, it can be nice just to not to have to do that.
Yeah, that's really, really nice. So do you find that as a profession, though, what is that liberty with the rest of your team? Because the team you're managing is, you know, like there's a whole lot of lot of administrative to this work. Right. So what is that? How does that play out?
It's almost a necessity too, because, you know, we have some large meetings of, you know, 30 plus people, and because the health system is so large, they're from all over the place.
Right.
So to try and gather people from, you know, all areas, even up, you know, north, we have hospitals. Right. It's just more efficient. And my, you know, some of my direct reports are all at different hospitals.
Interesting. So do you feel like the efficiency's improved once the reality of being forced to work from a home base, maybe there was efficiencies in that process for at least this industry?
Yeah, and you know, initially we weren't set up, but now we have, you know, it's the Zoom and the MS Teams, and everything is kind of set up for that.
Interesting.
So it is more efficient. I think, though, what happened is a lot of the administrative sort of support people sort of disappeared, and I think our front lines felt that. So there has been, you know, now more of a push to kind of come back and make sure that, you know, we're present and supporting those who are doing the hard work. Doing the hard work.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. So you do a little skiing, you get down to the beach.
I mean, a lot of it is centered on Luke and trying to, you know, do activities.
Her son.
Yeah, my son. Doing activities for him, or, you know, he's in drums and, you know, going to his performances and things like that. So I would say for fun, I'm a big fan of the happy hour. So, you know, and walks, so my friends, we'll do happy hours or walks or like that.
And that girl time in this case is really, really important. Like that's the fun part.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Yeah.
I think that if anyone wants to learn more about how Michelle juggles it all, leave us a message, and I'm sure she'll be just happy to do another interview for any of the questions out there. Any other words of advice for single moms?
I think, you know, the support system is important, and I think just acceptance. You know, it was never my hope or intention. I knew it would be hard, and it was never anything I wanted to do. But you know, life happens. And, yeah, I don't know. I think
Acceptance is a great word. Because with acceptance comes some management and control over the choices and how you want to fill your days.
Yeah.
Because once that day is gone, you don't get that day back.
Yeah.
Can't unravel what isn't going well. You just figure out how to improve every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you have to, in my case, I'm, sort of both parents. Luke's father isn't involved. So, there's additional, I think, breaks too, trying to find,
Respite time.
Yes. With family or
even just yourself.
Or his friend. Yeah. I mean, just,
Yeah. For you.
Yes. Finding
grounding
time for Luke to go somewhere so
Yeah.
that I can have, I need that. And so I do try to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
Because it recharges me and then I can be a better parent.
I agree. The recharge that's a great way to close this out for anybody doing anything, married or not married, children or no children. There's so many interrupts anymore, especially with the social media thing, right? It's just this thing running constantly in the background. And being able to shut everything down and kind of push the recharge battery is so important, everyone. So on that note, meet Michelle. We're so glad, Michelle, you came in today. I just think that you're a huge inspiration to women. And I think the best word of the day is recharge. Right. Recharge and acceptance. I love those two words.
All right.
That was the learn of the day. Those are the nuggets. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Well, you decided to become a foster parent.
Yes, I did.
That's remarkable. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, my background is mental health. I have my master's in clinical psychology, and I used to work with foster children.
Okay, I did not know that. Okay.
And one of the things in my current job, we have a huge mental health and addiction service line, and we have, I'm on calls essentially daily. We have kids, waiting for placement, waiting in the emergency room.
Okay.
So it's just kind of been a reminder to me that there's kids out there that need a home and need support. And I feel like at this point in my life, it's potentially something I could do. I mean, I'm financially stable, and I have a huge home now, thanks to you, with extra room.
You really do have the space.
I have, I have I have 5 bedrooms, and there's just my son and I.
Yeah.
So, and Luke should have been born into a large family because he loves the hubbub. So, it's just something that sort of started kicking around. And I thought, why not get certified? I mean, and just see where it goes, see what happens. And that was before COVID. And so then that was kind of a pause. And it's a long process. There's a lot to paperwork and interviews and homes.
Practically like adopting, I suppose, in a way.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you watched the episode with Allie Doyle, who's my social media director with CACG. Allie was a part of the foster care program from age 10 to 18.
Oh,
it was a
really
fascinating interview, and really a big issue out there right now, and families not wanting to foster. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on, and I think it'd be fun for the two of you to meet sometime and chat a little bit about that. Explain to everybody what's involved. Like if somebody out there is at a place in life where they feel like they have the space, the time, the resources, and they want to contribute and do something like this, what is involved to do that?
Yeah, my start was they've changed the name now, but it was Minnesota Waiting Kids. And if you go on, you see just a list of children with videos and pictures, and just there's a little bit of their story waiting for homes. It's if you have a heart for that, it's heartbreaking, and you just think, wow, maybe this is something I could do. So through the state, you take a class initially, and then you select an agency to partner with, and then walk you through the process of getting certified, which is, it's a lot of paperwork and forms. They get to know every aspect of you. And then, the final step is really they come out to the home and look at your home, make sure it's safe, fire extinguishers and that type of thing. There's training, a lot of training. And then I just received my certificate in the mail. So, but then, it's also a process to potentially match.
Find the right fit for the family unit. And of course, you do have your son. Michelle moved here from Chicago. It's going into the 6th year now, and she's in a beautiful home with her son, Luke. And Luke would love to probably have that kind of environment going. But then, of course, you want to be cognizant of the personality you're bringing in. So how does it work in terms of ages? I mean, sure, it's all over the board.
Yeah. I mean, the real need is for, as you can imagine, for teens. Everybody, this was the other motivation. I watched CBS Sunday Morning, and there was a clip on about a little boy who, was fostered and then adopted. And he had taken just a real liking to shelter dogs. And one of the things he said is everybody wants babies and puppies. Nobody wants the older dogs. And he loved the older dogs. And that's I'm like,
awesome.
that is true. And the older kids are really hard. It's harder to find families that want to start with someone who's, 15, 16, or even ready to, but, even 17-year-olds, they're still young, right? They're still babies.
They're babies.
They need support and help. So I don't know where it'll lead. But I just thought I'm just going to be open to it and see, Luke would obviously love, he wants a 12-year-old boy, right? He wants
somebody his age. Yeah.
So we're just kind of exploring some different options.
So what is the interview process? How does that work? So first you pick out the group you want to work with.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, you're doing your paperwork and learning through that organization. So how many organizations are there in total in the state?
That I don't know. But they all work very collaboratively together. Okay. So initially they assign a caseworker to kind of do the home study and help me through the process. And then that person stays on with me and then helps through the matching process. So you really get to know. So I have a single point of contact.
Almost like a counselor then.
Yeah. Okay. She's that's her expertise. And then, it's sort of I feel like it's almost like the dating process because I had to make a family flyer, and then these kids have these flyers, and it's sort of like, are you interested? Are they interested? But one of the things, it's, they're looking for a family. They're not going to, it's not you choosing, they are choosing you.
Right.
Because it really has to be the kid focused.
Right. I understand.
Yeah.
So how many kids in the state do you think, Michelle, are in need of foster care?
Well, I think that I'm not sure either, but I think what I've read on the waiting kids, it's like 130 or...
Oh, wow.
There's probably more that aren't
so within that group, there's probably around 130 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought the number was a lot bigger. Allie, when she did the interview, if you guys go into the podcast list, Allie is my social media director, and she was part of the foster program from age 10 to 18. And in her interview, which would be really interesting for the two of you to meet, she was in a number of foster care families. They just... It's
heartbreaking.
constant.
So one of the pieces of information I get when reviewing a potential child is how many placements they've been in. So So why is that? Because the families, what do you think the motivation is there? Because some of them I think probably are temporary. So when kids are removed from the home, it's like a short-term placement. But there is also a lot of disruption. So, these kids... a lot of times they work at getting themselves sort of kicked out because they don't want to bond. They want to reject before they're rejected.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. And then, I mean, the one file I looked at, the girl had been in 25 placements.
Wow.
So she's 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
So you can imagine after that amount of time, we used to use this term like it's like Velcro. Pretty soon they don't stick anymore, and they don't bond, and they don't connect. And
it's an emotional.
And then they just keep bouncing. And they have issues, and a lot of times people, they'll hang in with their own kids,
right?
But when they feel like they have a choice, they'll be like, "This is too hard," and then it just further traumatizes
the child,
the kids.
Interesting. So I'm wondering, there must be. I wonder how many families out there would be willing to get involved with fostering and just don't have any idea. This would be an interesting one, Carter, to link up. Maybe one. We'll link up one or a handful. Maybe, is there a main organization that's funneling all those calls, or are families seeking out and choosing, like you did, Michelle, choosing where they want to start, and then they're focusing on one organization to work with?
Well, the state is the one who does the certification.
Okay.
So you kind of start with the state of Minnesota.
Oh, interesting.
But then I think you can do, like, I chose a private organization to get certified through, but there's also, the state that you can get certified through.
Interesting.
So, but either way, you end up certified. But now I think a lot of it is there's different types of placements. You could just do emergency placements, or you can kind of, I think the push now is like foster to adopt.
Right.
Because they want permanency for the kids.
Right, which would make sense for sure. Yeah. And Allie flat out said it, so I'm just going to bring it up. A lot of people go into the fostering workflow, we'll call it, for the wrong intentions. So there's some monetization that goes on in this process. And so there's a lot of families out there that are putting themselves into the role and getting qualified to be a foster family, but they're the ones rolling, these beautiful children through their household, and they're doing it in a manner so they can foster as many people as possible.
A job, almost as income. I think that's a huge mistake.
Oh my gosh, it's totally not okay. Yeah.
I mean, you have to really do it for the children, and you have to be very committed. It cannot be just...
That's exactly
it's a terrible motivation. I think there's better ways to make money.
And being aware that that's going on may draw certain people out there that have been on the fence, like, oh my gosh, there's a real need out here. Talk about a perfect fly the coop story, and all these little chicks are out there that need a new coop, you guys. So,
yes.
Wow. So good for you. So now you've just gotten your certification. Now the next steps are finding potential children that you feel you could truly bring on the long term. Would you consider adopting?
I mean, potentially, if it was the right fit.
Yeah.
I think, like anything else, I'm just kind of seeing where this, one of the things I've said throughout the process in my interview is that I don't need to do this. It's more of a, I want to help if there's someone, like if they came and said, you know what, we don't have a need, there's no kids that need foster care, I would be jumping up and down.
Right.
So it's more of a altruistic thing on my part, but I think a lot of people, it is more like I want to do this because I want to add to my family. My family's incomplete. I don't feel that. I don't feel like anything's incomplete. In fact, it might be hard, but it's more of a could I do this, and could I help a child?
I think that's amazing. I had no idea. Michelle just shared this with me, like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. We have to talk about this. Mostly because I was so impacted. I've never actually met a child before that was part of a foster program ever in my life. And Allie spent some time visiting with me about it. And I was just like, wow, I had no idea. Most people have zero idea what's going on right now out there when it comes to fostering children.
Yeah. And the caseworker that was assigned to me actually went through the foster system herself.
Wow.
And was adopted very late, like at age 17. And so, these stories are really, and now she's in a professional role, trying to give back in that same capacity.
Wow.
But it's, you just don't know what people, and
you don't know what they've been through either.
Still, even if they find the right match, it's still traumatizing because, they're being ripped out of there's still a loss.
Well,
so it's hard.
For a child to even be in a place where they're being fostered, there's already trauma there.
Yes.
For whatever happened that they're in that position in the first place.
Yes.
And being in a place where you can contribute like that, I think is amazing. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. So we will link up some resources for all of you. I just thought I'd share if you watch the first podcast with Michelle Hodge has been part of the medical industry for a really, really long time and is a part of an ecosystem that there was a real awareness and a need. And I just really wanted to share that's admirable and just an amazing contribution. So thank you for sharing the story. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Maybe there'll be a part 3.
Oh, I think there probably will be. We're going to have to because obviously you're going to bring a kiddo in and we're going to have to hear about how it's going.
Yeah.
Maybe even bring the kiddo in to talk. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
I think that'd be super cool.
That would be cool.
Okay. Michelle Hodge, everybody. Yeah. We'll be back to you and give you an update on this one. Thank you so much for listening. Have a beautiful day.